If I win this election, the first thing I'm going to do is call up Zelenskyy and call up President Putin, and I'm going to say, you got to make a deal. This is crazy.
He made it all sound so simple before re-election.
I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours. I would get a settlement in 24 hours. 24 hours.
But 7 months since returning to office, still no deal, still the war rages on.
And I may say this is not going to be settled.
Donald Trump sent ripples of fear through Europe yesterday by saying he'll discuss, quote, land swapping with Vladimir Putin at a summit here in Alaska on Friday. A summit which Ukraine will play no part in, a summit on which EU leaders are desperately clambering for influence.
Ukraine cannot lose this war, and no one has the right to put pressure on Ukraine when it comes to territorial concessions or other decisions that would smell of capitulation.
Donald Tusk was just one of 26 EU leaders to sign his name to a joint statement this morning. The statement, dripping with diplomacy, started by heaping praise on the US president, saying, "We, the leaders of the European Union, welcome the efforts of President Trump towards ending Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine." But then came the meat, their message, although with no direct criticism. The people of Ukraine must have the freedom to decide their future. The path to peace in Ukraine cannot be decided without Ukraine. International borders must not be changed by force. And on fears that Putin may make military restrictions a key demand of peace, a Ukraine capable of defending itself effectively is an integral part of any future security guarantees. Signed by all EU leaders except for one, this footnote saying Hungary does not associate itself with this statement. And this is Russia's statement. Their defense ministry releasing these pictures of troops raising Russian flags in the town of Dobropilia in the Donetsk region, an army on the advance. The questions going into this week's summit: who holds the upper hand and whose interests are going to be best served? For Donald Trump,
yes.
What is more important here, a quick deal or a good deal for Ukraine?
A quick deal. In many ways, I think he's treating this as, I need a quick win. I need to show some sort of a result. But of course, there's a very high likelihood that he may walk away from this with very little, if anything at all, in terms of any tangibles.
Okay, so Donald Trump needs a quick deal, but does Vladimir Putin need a quick deal? Does Ukraine need a quick deal?
So Vladimir Putin is the only one who actually does not need a deal today, or even tomorrow. He can hold out for as long as he needs to because he is making military gains that he needs to make at the moment. He has the weapons and the manpower, though perhaps there are limits there too, but compared to Ukraine at least, he's in a stronger position. So he actually wants to make some sort of a deal with Trump so that there's no further US sanctions. That's the deal that he really needs on Friday.
A nation's fate will be negotiated on Alaskan soil on Friday. Soil that was once sold to the US by Russia in 1867. The Ukrainian fear, it's now their land being bartered for, and they don't even have a seat at the table. There has been a flurry of diplomacy over the last hour. Ukrainian president coming out saying, look, any deal that said he would have to move troops out of the eastern region of Donbass, he will simply not go ahead with. The EU has said they're going to hold a virtual meeting tomorrow of leaders. The NATO General Secretary, Mark Rutte, said he's now going to join that meeting. And in the last half hour, CNN are reporting that Donald Trump will also join that meeting. And over the next few days, you can expect more messages, more briefing, every effort to exercise influence. But the gnawing sensation in the back of every EU leader's mind is, for Donald Trump, the America First president, the president who his views towards NATO, the decades-long alliance, has been at best lukewarm. How much skin does this man really have in the game?
Thanks, Paul. Well, I'm joined now from Kyiv by the Ukrainian MP and party leader Kira Rudik. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to start, first of all, with those advances by Russia in the last few days. They've made significant gains. What do you fear? How do you fear this plays into this summit coming up on Friday?
Hello, Jackie, and thank you so much for having me. You know, right now when we are speaking, the air raid sirens went on in Kyiv. And this is what the pressure that we are under, both at the battlefield and in the peaceful cities. Russia is obviously trying to get as much as possible to have an upper hand at the negotiations, saying that they are in the march. They have been preparing for this offensive for a long time. And we think this is why President Trump was giving them first 50 days, then like 12 days, to allow them to come to the meeting with certain stronger positions than they have right now.
I mean, this statement from those European leaders warning against Ukrainian borders being withdrawn by force, but the fact that those leaders and Ukraine won't actually be in the room on Friday, they've been relegated to this virtual summit tomorrow. Does what they say make any difference?
Well, it shows the position, and it reminds President Trump that it wouldn't be so easy just to cut a deal behind the closed door, because then you will have to get an execution on it. And that brings us to a very important and complicated question that nobody seems to be tackling right now. And it is who or what will make sure that Putin will keep his part of the bargain. We have been in war with Russia since 2014 when they attacked us. Since that time, we had enormous amount of ceasefire agreements that were never honored. So how this time will be different? What's going to be a security guarantee that will allow us to be talking even about the terms of the end of the war? Because right now what is happening, there is no deal on the table, and everything that we hear is just some random information from different sources. The truth is we don't know what's going to happen, and on a personal note, we just hope to survive till Friday, because these attacks, they continue.
I mean, you say that there is no clear deal on the table at the moment, but what if there is one that emerges out of Friday? Donald Trump, he said yesterday that any deal would involve some swapping of territories, some good, some bad for Ukraine. If this summit does come up with some sort of deal agreed by both presidents, what happens next?
Then we ask up a question again. President Trump, what are the security guarantees that Ukraine is getting? Then when you are not in the office, Russia would not attack us again, even in a more brutal way. How do we trust Russia now if we know for a fact that they already have attacked us many times before? What is the way of going forward? And this is the most important question that we and our European partners, in fact, have to have an answer to right now. Because right, they can shake some hands and Putin will get some pictures on the American soil. The next steps will be much more complicated. Again, stopping Russia. And I want to remind you that by this moment, President Trump was not even able to have them agree to a ceasefire. Just stop attacking. And they were not able or not willing to do that. So
but
why would
you heard the analyst
Russia
in the piece? You heard the analyst in the piece saying that the real danger for you is that Vladimir Putin doesn't need a deal right now because he continues to make these military advances.
That could be as well, and he will continue attacking us. But the truth is, even without this meeting in Alaska, he will continue going with his strategy. And this is something that did not change for like 3.5 or maybe more years. And the question is then to President Trump, is he able to have yet another useless meeting that he will leave without a deal, with yet another public slap of Russia's president, same as he had when he attacked Kiev with the most massive attack since the beginning of the war, right after the call of American president. And it is not about Ukraine right now. It is the whole world that is watching.
Kira Rudik, thank you very much for talking to us today.
Thank you. And good luck to Ukraine.
Now, meanwhile, the American vice president has been met with protests as he enjoys a holiday in the Cotswolds. JD Vance is staying in the village of Dean near Chipping Norton this week, taking part from there in crunch talks on Ukraine ahead of that summit on Friday. A significant police presence has descended on the area, and Amelia Jen has been talking to locals and holidaymakers to find out what they make of it.
In Britain and across Europe, free speech, I fear, is in retreat.
JD Vance, shame on you!
J.D. Vance! Shame on you!
If he was worried free speech was in demise, the American Vice President J.D. Vance will have been pleased, no doubt, to see it exercised so full-throatedly just one village over from his Cotswolds retreat. The leafy peace of this corner of Oxfordshire disturbed by the unusual sound of protest in what was billed as a not welcome party for him.
If we weren't here, it would be as if we were complicit with him and his politics. And yeah, sure, come on holiday after everything he said about the UK. So I think it's important that we've come out, and so many people have come out as well, just to sort of say, go away.
He and Trump were disgraceful when they were bullying Zelensky. Absolutely disgraceful.
I was in tears watching it. It was nothing but bullying. And I hate bullies.
This is a private holiday, but rarely do Vance family trips pass without a rumbling of discontent.
This was a scene in Waitsfield.
In March, he was greeted by hundreds of protesters on a ski trip in Vermont, and his wife Usha Vance's tour of Greenland, which President Trump threatened to annex, was cancelled because it was reported nobody wanted to meet her. But despite his unsavoury depictions of the UK and its European allies' attempts to offer security guarantees to Ukraine,
From some random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years.
the government has oiled the wheels of his visit, hosting him in the Grace and Favour mansion Chevening, with old insults forgotten, baits primed, and jokes shared in a carp fishing session with the Foreign Secretary.
We've gone fishing in the lake outside, and unfortunately, the one strain on the special relationship is that all of my kids caught a fish, but the Foreign Secretary did not. I'm sorry.
He and his considerable entourage are now based out of a private property in the same Oxfordshire village that's home to a former Prime Minister and where other locals aren't too flustered.
David Cameron's done quite a lot for the village over the last few years. Obviously, we have Jeremy Clarkson just up the hill. So I'm going to say we're almost used to it.
I've got friends who actually live in Dean who haven't been particularly impressed because they've had their houses checked through and stuff like that. And yeah, it's been a big sort of upheaval for their day-to-day life.
So the police have actually gone inside their houses to check them? Yeah. Hello, sir. Can I ask you a question? What do you make of him being here?
Well, I wouldn't know he was here.
It's the holidaymakers who are most surprised, including this family renting a cottage just a stone's throw away.
We only realised when we arrived and the road was closed and police were doing lots of checks and stuff. So we were a bit worried about why they were doing all the checks, to be honest, because we were completely oblivious.
Other than it sounding like an episode of The Diplomat, it doesn't make any odds to me.
You're all from America. What do you make of having chosen the very village where your vice president has chosen to come at exactly the same time?
Incredible odds. That's all I'll say. It's very interesting.
I'm not a fan of the administration, so that's why I have mixed feelings.
As this van with a meme of J.D. Vance's face on it toured the Cotswolds this afternoon, the Vice President sat down with the opposition, just not its leader, hosting the Shadow Justice Secretary Robert Jenrick in perhaps the latest wing clipping of Kemi Badenoch. There was a diary clash, hers and Vance's team said. Vance will also meet Reform UK leader Nigel Farage tomorrow, the clamouring for the ear of American power, a precursor to Trump's state visit in September.